What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, and this is part 2 of my ranking and reviewing Phish's live series, the live Phish series that they started releasing like 2000, 2001, early 2000s. This is volume 2. This is a 3-disc set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the show, and then I'm going to rank it as it compares to number 1, and then as the list grows, I will all rank them within each other, right? So this is volume 2. It is a complete show from 1994, July 16th in Vermont. Was on a ski slope or at the bottom of a ski slope. The last show of the 94 tour. And I think it's one of those shows that my hair is like getting long. My kindergarten classes cut my hair in like 10 days. So it's a really unruly at this point. Anyways, sorry. It's the last show of the tour. And the tour was a tour where, like, over the course of this entire tour, you saw things like the Bomb Factory and, like, Dallas. You saw them really start to push, like, songs and segues and really go out there, like, sort of, like, instrumentally and improvisation-wise. And I have found that a lot of times the last shows of tours tend to be high-energy, fun shows and not necessarily deep, deep improv exploration shows. This fits that bill. This is a high-energy, really fun show. Couple excellent high energy jams, but I don't think there isn't anything that's like a really deep type 2 type space jam in here. So while it is a highly enjoyable show, I don't know how much of it is something I go back to re-listen to very often. I enjoy it when I do, but I don't think, we'll get into it, and it'll make more sense when we see the set list. So again, 3 sets on this. The entirety of set 1 fits on disc 1. And I think there's almost like a tease. It's not necessarily a tease, but there's sort of something that happens early on in the set that maybe sets you up for expectations that I don't think are necessarily met. Opens up with Golgi Apparatus, which is very much a Golgi. I always forget how Golgi Apparatus. Look into my microscope, whatever. This was very much one of those, hey, it's the last show of the tour. You got a ticket. You're in. I saw you with the ticket stub in your hand. This was one of those. Everybody loved it at the time. The energy was good. You can feel how psyched everybody is to be here. The band is psyched. They keep talking about what a fantastic tour it was throughout the duration of the show. This is one of those moments where you're like, yeah, I saw you. They play Golgi Apparatus. Why am I forgetting how they pronounce it? Okay, sorry. They play that song. Then they go into Down with Disease. The Down with Disease is your kind of typical Down with Disease jam at the end, guitar solo type energy. But then what happens is that sort of devolves into them performing Nitrous, which was on the white tape, which is like them simulating the sounds of nitrous, of inhaling like a nitrous balloon. There's like this like clipped like percussive track. I think it might be a keyboard loop or some kind of loop in the back that has that sort of like nitrous sound going. Mike saying things over it. It's like you're in a dentist office, but it's also in nitrous balloons were big in Phish parking lots. And so it's really neat because you get this Down with Disease. It dissolves into Nitrous, which I don't think they had played in like 5 years. So this was like, whoa, they're playing Nitrous. Everybody was freaking out. And that goes into a stash. Stash is a good stash. Nice solid jam at the end. So your standard 94 stash. Definitely not the most epic of the stashes. Not a bad stash. Just a really good stash. But the promise that is set up is that Down with Disease goes into something they haven't played for 5 years. And so the expectations are like, this is just going to be a show. But then the rest of the show is just kind of a show. Good show, not complaining about it. But that surprise that I think Nitrous offers isn't necessarily delivered. We get a Lizards after a stash. Always excited to hear a Lizard. Nice song choice there. We get a Cavern. Interesting mid-set song. We get the Horse Silent in the Morning. We get a really strong maze. Always good mazes. We get a Sparkle. Never a fan of Sparkle. And then we get a Sample in a Jar to close out the set. Solid first set. Not a fantastic first set. And I think that the highlight, without a doubt, is the Down with Disease into Nitrous, into like a self-contained stash. Probably the highlights of the first set. Second set starts off on disc 2, continues on to disc 3. Opens up with what I think is probably the highlight of the show. We get a Run Like an Antelope. That's essentially a 20-minute Run Like an Antelope with a catapult jam in the middle. Not even a catapult jam. There's this really neat sort of like repetitive like piano thing that they play that Trey says the catapult lyrics over, and Fishman's like joking with them. They joke about Trey's wedding and Trey not wanting to get married, and then Fishman takes it back like, no, why would you want the wedding to be canceled? No, that's not what you want. So there's a little comedic banter there. But the Run Like an Antelope is just one of those that starts off playful. They're messing with like volume and tempo and different people maybe not playing all the right notes. And then once they hit that da na 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 na, they're just in it. The energy's good. They're hitting that guitar solo pretty fiercely. It's your typical sort of weird Antelope at this time, pretty much straightforward with pockets of weirdness, you know, where things kind of devolve and then they pick it back up into that high energy Antelope. Things eventually start to slow down. We get this really neat little repetitive groove that sets up the catapult. Then after that, things get even weirder after the catapult. We go into probably the weirdest sort of jammy part of this before all of a sudden we just tighten it up and we're back into the like Run Like an Antelope out of control until we reach the end of the solo. So we get like about almost 10 minutes of Antelope. We get a nice little 2-minute middle part that includes catapult, which they've indexed separately. And then we go back into Antelope for like another 8 minutes to finish strong. So really good Antelope, nice and stretched out, really, really high energy. It's really neat to have a catapult in the middle of it. Then we get a Harpoon. I have mixed thoughts on Harpoon. I like seeing Harpoon live. Not sure I like listening to it as much. I love the actual song itself. It's like a story song. So you get a song, then you get Trey doing narration, then you got other parts of the song that have like different sort of musical motifs. I love the actual song itself. It is this really sort of stilted funk that just kind of works, has this weird funky rhythm. It's kind of awkward, but it works so well. Love the lyrics, love the way they're delivered. I just think the actual song of Harpoon is fantastic. They tell this, they do the actual song, then they go into like this really like low key part where they're just like repeating the same little riff over and over again. This is when Trey tells the story of like Harpoon, the old man who owns Harpoon. Harpoon is a dog. He's really mean. There's Jimmy, who's a boy who has a cat. The cat's name is Poster Nutbag. Eventually, the cat dies because Harpoon and the cat fight. In the course of this story, at this actual show, there was a comet that was apparently crashing into Jupiter in like real time at that real moment. I think it was actually happening during the show. So that's included in the narration of it. And usually in Harpoon, most of the time they will like not fully play a full song, but will jam on another song or reference another song. Not one of their own songs, but like a cover song, somebody else's song. Trying to think of other songs that they've done in the past, like AC/DC songs or just random stuff, right? In this one, having referenced the comet, they go into like pretty much a full 3-minute version of the 2001 Also Spake Zarathustra from 2001 Space Odyssey. So they play that. The version that they always play, the sort of disco version. Then they go back into Harpoon for the finishing part. Has some neat little parts. Has this little jaunty like this little like nice little cocktail lounge type number. And then the cat dies. They go into that part. It finishes out. So it's a neat little song. Takes up like close to 20 minutes, 17, 18 minutes of the set. But the narration part isn't something I always want to go back to. And as neat as it was to hear 2001, that's a song they already did. So it feels like, oh man, we could have got something else a little bit different. But I don't know. It's a neat Harpoon. That goes into an AC/DC bag. It's a pretty good AC/DC bag, good energy. The jam kind of starts off strong. They kind of bring it down before they build it back up to that sort of like frenzied finish. Then they go into what is, I think, the low point of the show, kind of the low point of the second set, kind of ruins the flow of the second set. Phish didn't really have first set, second set songs as sort of stringently defined as the Dead did. But Scent of a Mule to me is a first set song. The energy of Scent of a Mule, you got the studio version, and the studio version, they essentially play that, but in the middle, they do this thing where they completely break it down and they slow it down and they kind of get silly with each other and play this other musical part. Somebody, and I think it's Trey, is completely dropping the ball in that middle part. The middle part just kind of doesn't work. I think the energy is off on the whole thing. I don't think the energy doesn't work coming out of AC/DC bag. It just feels like it ruins the flow of what could have been a better set. And had they dropped a lot of other different songs here after AC/DC Bag. I think they could have helped elevate the second set to a little bit higher heights. That's the end of the second disc. Third disc is the remaining of the set. You get a really solid Harry Hood, really low-key, patient, take our time before we get into like the very first like actual part of the song, just that playful sort of pseudo reggae intro, nice and stretched out. A lot of fake teases where you think they're going to go into the Harry, and they don't. They're like, and then they go back into that little part. Nice build up. Once they actually go into the song, it stays pretty mellow for like even the parts when it gets like the da-na-na-na-na. All of it kind of seems a little bit mellow. It's got some good energy, but just kind of mellow. And then they get to that closing jam, and it is just the most carefully, like scaffolded, slowly building, just absolutely, just almost perfectly played Harry Hood. Just an absolutely fantastically played Harry Hood. A Harry Hood that's so good, it almost seems like it could end the set and everybody would go home satisfied. It doesn't. There's then a contact, and then the contact goes into a fantastic Chalk Dust Torture. Pretty straightforward Chalk Dust Torture. Just a really nice, long, stretched out, high energy jam with a really nice Barracuda quote, the Heart song, in the beginning when they're playing that opening riff, and Trey's dropping that Barracuda jam in it, and it fits so nicely in the Chalk Dust Torture buildup. It's almost like you kind of have to pay attention to catch it because it fits so perfectly in the song. And then the solo is just really nice and they finish it out. And then we get a really good high energy Susie Greenberg as an encore. Really good show. I would say by far the highlights of the show are in the second set. The Run Like an Antelope, Catapult, Run Like an Antelope. Excellent 20 minutes. Chalk Dust Torture, excellent closer. Harry Hood, one of the better Harry Hoods of 94, easily, I would say. Harpua, depends on how much you like Harpua, but it's a pretty decent Harpua. It's a fun Harpua, even though, again, I'm not a big fan of the talking of Trey as something that, in the moment, but to go back and re-listen to a lot, not one of my favorite things. First set, pretty standard first set, though hearing the Nitrous, which is, 2 minutes, kind of interesting. But the first set's, I think, kind of standard. But fun show, high energy show. No real deep type 2 jams where they go really out there and explore, but it's just some good focused energy. Yeah. Anyways, where would I rank that? I'd put it right there as number 2. Number 1 is still my favorite, and number 2 is my second favorite. But yeah, that's it. Those are my thoughts on Live Phish Volume 2. If you're new to Phish and you're looking to check out them out of these two, I would pick 1 before I pick 2, just because the jams on 1 I think are pretty epic, and 2 is more, the jams are more focused, straight ahead focused on the guitar playing and just, how they get weird with the guitar rhythms, or, how Antelope gets weird but then focuses back, Chalk Dust gets weird and focuses back. They're not going deep out there, but some good energy. It shows many different sides of the band, the fun sides of the band, the playful sides of the band. Everybody seems in a good mood. The Run Like an Antelope, the first half of that, I didn't even mention, is like kind of chaotic. Trey is just screaming. He's using the megaphone. I think he was running around like the entire stage at one point during Antelope. High energy, crazy Antelope. I need to praise that more. And I think you can feel that energy. There are just some moments where they're just like, ah, and just like screaming, like having a great time, which might explain why Son of a Mule was so messed up, because maybe Trey was having too good of a time and just couldn't keep it together for Son of a Mule, possibly. But yeah, that's it. Those are my thoughts on this. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this release. And if you're going to listen to this, listen to set 2. Set 2, pretty fantastic, especially that Antelope opener. But that's it. That's all I got. Subscribe, like, share, and go listen to music, people. Go listen to all the music. Peace. Talk to you later.